I am your African history teacher, Professor Hicks, and we're back for our second part of our discussion today on Africans being the first Americans. Now, I want you to prepare yourself for a little reading that might be a little boring to you, but I have to do this for you to accept, for you to cognitively accept this information without too much dissonance. Okay? And for those who are not familiar with what I'm saying or talking about, go to my previous video. So let's get right to it. Let me show you a book. Oops, backwards. Oh, sorry. Now I'm showing you these books because hopefully that you might decide to purchase them. Now this book here is 2,000 and something pages. What is this book about? This book is about the history and the geography of human genes. Now, as you know, over the last 20 years, DNA and genetic studies have taken the world by storm. It started with simple crime analysis. In the courtroom is where genetic studies began, proving people innocent or guilty of crimes. It then spread out over the last 25 to 30 years to reach its tentacles in almost every part of life, but more importantly into historical, anthropological, archaeological studies. Today, I'm going to read you something from three great men who helped produce this 2,000 and something page book. These men have done an exhaustive study on geography and the human population of people through genetics and DNA. Their names are Luca Cavalli Sforza, Paolo or Paola, I could be saying it wrong, please forgive me, Minozzi, and Alberto Piazza, all Italian scientists who over the last 50 to 50, maybe 60 years, compiled all of this information so that scientists, particularly geneticists, can track human origins and where people have migrated to. This book is where all the genealogists get their information who are tracking your ancestors. So this book has definitely been used by African Ancestry and all the other ancestry sites that you have been a part of. This book was there before these sites were created. And most of them use this book and these scientists to confirm their findings. But in order for me to have you understand this, I have to read what this book is about. So bear with me. The name of this book again is The History and Geography of Human Genes. The History and Geography of Human Genes by Luca Cavalli Sforza, Paola Minozzi, and Alberto Piazza, three European white men. The reconstruction of the human family tree, its branching order, its timing, and its geography may be within our grasp. This research has great importance for the obvious and most joyously legitimate parochial reason: our intense fascination with ourselves and our detailed history. Cavalli Sforza and his collaborators have devoted 14 years to the most compelling scientific projects of our time: the reconstruction of where human populations originated and the path by which they spread. In this volume, the culmination of their research, their authors explain their pioneering use of genetic data, which they integrate with insight from geography, ecology, archaeology, physical anthropology, and linguistics to create the first full scale account of human evolution as it occurred across all continents. Let me stop for a moment. As I said earlier, this is not just germane to United States and African history. This is germane to all people. This is the Bible for geneticists. This interdisciplinary approach, now by that he means interdisciplinary, meaning archaeology, physical anthropology, ecology, geography, and history. These are all disciplines that are entered into this particular study. This interdisciplinary approach enables them to address a wide range of issues that continue to incite debate. The timing of the first appearance of our species, the problem of the African origins, including the significance of work recently done on mitochondrial DNA. Now, mitochondrial DNA is the DNA that only women carry. And why is it so important? Because this DNA does not disappear like the Y and the male DNA. It is a track that you can track back all the way to the beginning of human time, because women are the true keepers of time and history. That's why in Africa we honor our women. That's why they are the mother goddess in all ancient religions. You can't have a king without a queen. You can't have a man without a woman. Women are the genesis to the planet, to our populations, no matter where you are. They are the true God, in my estimation. And if you're not honoring your woman, you are not a man. The authors reconstruct the history of our evolution by focusing on genetic divergence among human groups, meaning these groups that migrated from place to place, divergence. For example, in Africa, we have the largest diversion of DNA and genetics. You have the tallest people in Africa as well as the shortest. You have the most beautiful and some of the most ugly. You have the most genius is found in Africa, and you have the dumbest. So that divergence, using genetic information accumulated over 50 something years, they examined over 110 different inherited traits, such as blood types, haplogroups, HLA factors, proteins, and DNA markers in over 1,800 primarily Aboriginal populations. Yes, not native, Aboriginal, meaning the first. Native does not mean the first. By mapping the worldwide geographic distribution of genes, these scientists are now able to chart migrations and in exploring genetic distance, meaning that if you have if you're in Africa and all of a sudden you're in America, they can trace it. The longer, beginning with the explanation, I'm sorry. This volume highlights the author's contributions to genetic geography, particularly the techniques for making geographic maps of gene frequencies and their synthetic method of detecting ancient migrations, as for example the migration of Neolithic farmers from the Middle East towards Europe, West Asia, and North Africa. Now, when they mean Neolithic time is a time when people stopped being hunter-gatherers and they began to farm, plant. Women started this. Women were, while men were out hunting and bashing animals over the head with clubs, women were staying home watching a plant grow and wondering how every year that same plant grows. Cultivating that plant, and as such become the first farmers and starting the Neolithic Revolution. Yes, women. Beginning with the explanation of their major sources of data and concepts, The authors give an interdisciplinary account of human evolution at the world level. I made that point earlier. Chapters are then devoted to the evolution on single continents and include an analysis of genetic data and how this data relates to geographic, ecological, archaeological, anthropological, and linguistic information. Compromising a wide range of viewpoints, a vast store of new and recent information on genetics, and the generous supply of visual elements, yes, maps, covering this out, including more than 500 geographic maps. This book is unique source of facts and catalyst for further debate and research. The enormous breadth of its conclusion and its global scope will make this an extremely important book in the whole field of humanities and in the scientific study of human populations. This is why this book is so voluminous and so important. Now, with that out of the way, I'm hopeful that's enough evidence to prove to you that as we move forward, much of the information that I'm going to give you is evidence-based. Not facts, but leading to facts and supporting facts and truth through evidence. Supporting facts and truth through evidence. Okay, with that said, let's move to the next part of this. We should know that the Africans began to migrate out of Africa about 100 years ago. Some people say 45 to 50. We're going to leave it at 100. We also want to say that in this time, there were only one race of people. I hate to use that word, but I must. That adjective. Only one race, and that is Africans. You must accept, in order for you to indulge in this study, that there, for most of the world's history, there were only African people on this planet. Based on this book, you should know that white skin has only been on the planet since 3000 BC. Let me say that again. White skin has only been on this planet since 3000 BC. Babies compared to the rest of the world of people of color. Yes, that's why I say many times when I'm criticizing my European brothers and sisters, I say we have babies running the planet. And the evidence is quite clear when you look at the present king of the world or of the United States. Yes, you cannot find any more barbaric form of human existence in a place of authority than this man. And if you ever wondered why the behavior of some of these folks might be so, because they haven't learned. They haven't been on the planet long enough to learn the experiences that need in order to have a long, wonderful existence on planet Earth. These people have systematically destroyed societies, communities, populations, the earth, never abiding by the African concepts of nature, because Africans have always used nature as its guideline. Let's move on. This is for the people, African people, who I consider out of their minds, who constantly purport that Africans were born, created in America. Those people who go off and say, I'm not African, I'm American. Where is the evidence? Let's go through it. In Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Central Africa, and southern sub-Saharan Africa, a people came called the Anu, A-N-U. Another name they go by is the Twa, T-W-A, Mbuti. The San people from sub-Saharan Africa, who I believe and most scientists now accept as the first people. You should know also, before I go on, that these people were diminutive, very small people, some only 3 to 4 feet tall. Yes, the first Africans were not tall and looking like me. They were short, with prognostication in the jaw, dark skinned, and geniuses, 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 as you will find out. I believe these people were mystical because some of the accounts I have read over the years has put them in that category. These people brought the first civilization to the world. And some of their civilizations and some of the things, some of the elements, I should say, of their civilization were more modern than what we are and what we have today. You will see. These people have done things that we marvel at today because we, in our own egotistical and self-absorbed way, think we did it all. But we don't want to put the cart before the horse. So let's go on. So these are for those African people, mostly African people, who are steadfast in their belief that they are not from Africa. Or I'm not from Africa. I can't, it's just so. So here are the lineage and how this happened. Australopithecus gracile, meaning the Australopithecus, the species of grace. I'm sorry, let me start over. Australopithecus robusto. This was a species, a hominin, that showed gusto. Very physical. Then we have Australopithecus gracile. These were the more refined species that came either after or developed during, because there's a lot of science now saying that it wasn't a linear development, but a circular one where each of these species developed, but not so much in order as science has been purporting for the last 100 years. After we get to Australopithecus gracile, Australopithecus robusto, it should be robusto first, gracile second. Australopithecus afarensis. This is the person that you might know, popularized by the name Lucy. Then we move to Homo, the Homo genus. The Homo genus. Now we're talking about a species that is starting to look like us as we look today, the modern man. So that species was called Homo habilis, Habilis. The next in line, or that arose, was Homo erectus. These are the species that began to be, as we call, bipedals. And bipedal, we mean that they were walking on 2 legs. Bipedal. Erectus, standing erect. Then came, after erectus, and we mentioned afarensis, then we got Homo sapien. Now we're talking about human beings, or modern anatomically, meaning that their bodies in this ancient time look like our bodies today. And remember, I'm going to keep reminding you, these are all African people. Europeans did not exist yet. Chinese people did not exist yet. Red Indians did not exist yet. The only people on the planet during this time, 1 million years ago or more, are these Africans. The next one in line was Homo sapien, sapien the wise man. This was the last line of Homo sapiens that developed from Africa, in Africa. Now, about 100,000 years ago or less, this species, Homo sapien, left Africa. It migrated out of Africa into Asia first and then into Europe. So the first Europeans were African. Now, I'll keep referring back to the history that all of this information is in, genetically, anthropologically. See, you can't, some of you folks who are doing these genetic studies and saying, oh, I'm from Africa, you go to these ancestry.com, African ancestry. That's great. Not to say you don't have ancestry in some of those countries, but if it's not backed up by archaeology, it's a farce. You can't say that you're African like me, but you got ancestry in Poland. You could say it, but you can't back it up unless you have some archaeological evidence like a bone that shows the phenotype, the morphology of a person. That's why I don't submit to these African ancestries too much, or any ancestry, though they are real and they work. I'm not putting them down. But what people are doing and using them for is incorrect. Now, all of these species developed in Africa and then left. You cannot find any of these species, any of these hominins, anywhere else in the planet except for Africa. They are nowhere else. So I go to these mostly black people talking about they're from America. Yes, you have an heritage in America because we were there first. But to take off and say that this is where we are born, this is where our species developed, is ignorant at least, incorrect at best. There is no evidence to prove it. Nowhere on the planet. Okay. Now, what we're going to do with this subject, now that we got some of these species stuff out the way, we kind of need to understand that first, and keep reminding you that Europeans are not in this discussion yet. We need to understand some of the things we're going to find. I'm going to give you tomorrow, not today, some sites that you can, some information that you can go and research on. And I'm just going to come on to give you that. Because for you to understand this, you need to physically see evidence. Here's what I'm saying. I'm proclaiming that Africans have been all over the world. These Anu, Twa, and Bhutis, San people, have been all over the world and have built monuments and temples everywhere. Even in Mexico, those monuments, those pyramids was built by Africans. Every pyramid that you see has been built by Africans. Every monument you see has been built by Africans. I am going to give you some sites, and I'm going to sign off for a day or two so that you can research and see that we have been building monuments for over 100,000 years and for millions of years. We have been on this planet for 3 million years. And you're going to see the ingenious, the technology that has been lost because while we were growing into super sapiens, we were interrupted. We were interrupted by the Europeans. And I mean the late Europeans. You're going to find that the Caucasus Mountains, where these Europeans got trapped, or should I say Africans, because let me step back a bit. Africans are nothing but Europeans. Or should I say, Europeans are nothing but Africans. They were African first. And then something took place called mutations. And these mutations had a deleterious effect on these Africans. And when they came down from these mountains, they were no longer looking like Africans. But we don't want to put the cart before the horse. We need to take this in a logical manner so that you can be able to argue this and see it. And that's why I say you need to get this book first. This way, whatever Professor Hicks says, you can get back and say, wow, in this book, you will find the sites. You will see the video. You will see people have already confirmed this information, but the scientists, the aristocratic scientists, these government people who have repressed this information for so long, you're going to see how they lie, and how they have been lying and what they've been keeping from you. Thank God for the internet. Like Gutenberg's press back in Europe. When Gutenberg press was invented, typical and regular Europeans were able to read. And they began to open their minds and consciousness of what was going on. The internet has done that for us. You don't need to go ask a professor. You go on this internet, I'm going to give you the places to go. You're going to look them up, and then Professor Hicks will come back and we will have a discussion, because it is difficult to accept this information. You will have some dissonance. You will hear many of these sites telling you how for example, that a perfectly created pyramid with its cardinal points intact was created by water. That the water, the natural environment, the contradictions are so insane. I watched one tonight, a pyramid underwater, perfectly constructed. Sides are smooth, perfectly constructed. And then in the next breath, well, the Navy has to investigate to make sure it wasn't made naturally. This is how dumb they think we are. How dumb they think you are. Because a scientist who's gone to school for 30 years and been employed by the government to say and nod his head yes, we accept it. Just like we accepted what Trump said. Because he said it so emphatically and with such verve. We're going to learn about that stuff. So, I think I've said enough tonight, and I'm going a little bit over my time. I try to keep these things short now. I'll be back tomorrow to give you the sites and the places to find. I hope someone will comment for the first time. I've only got a few comments. I get it, though. It's okay. Because when I come back, I'm not going to have time to discuss that information. I'm going to simply say, have you been to the Chichen Itza pyramid site? Have you been into the China pyramid site? Have you been in the Cuban pyramid site? Have you been in the Wisconsin pyramid sites? Do you know what a mound is? I'll get to those explanations for you. But you got to do the work. So with that, I'm going to say Ashe, keep your thinking caps on, and get ready for some dissonance.